We as women, we do have to work harder. If we show any signs of we don't know what's going on, it shows up like 10 times more than if it was like someone else. We are just in a time where women are not afraid to just step up anymore. We're just like, you know what? We're gonna actually do it all because we can.
Check it out, man. It's the #1 co-signer. We're back in sunny Miami, right here at Dream Asylum. I came to see one of the golden ears in the game, Hall of Famer, Marcella. This is Don Cannon. This is BackTrak. Make sure you go to shop tomorrow and get all the new gear, and like and subscribe now. You in for a treat. Let's go. So cool story. All through my career, I only have a minimum amount of people that I didn't meet. It's crazy that I met one of the legends in another side of the world, which was Saudi Arabia. I happened to be at an event. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, I know this woman. I know her. And everybody's like, yeah, it's Marcella. I'm like, nah, that's not her. That's not the same one. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, it is her. Now I'm like, why didn't I never meet her in these times that, you know, I've been everywhere, man. I met everybody. And it's the one legend that I didn't get to meet. Hall of Famer style. Marcella, what's up?
How you doing?
Man, I can't believe we sitting here doing this, man, all the way from Saudi to here. And I feel like it was meant to happen. I always wanted to make this trip, and I told you that. I was like, yo, we gotta do something, and we gotta teach some of the people out here about the engineering, because I feel like engineering and producing go hand in hand.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? But before I get into it, tell people who you are, where you're from.
So yeah, my name is Marcella Araica, and I am a recording and mixing engineer from Miami, Florida. I've been engineering now for over 22 years. And it's so crazy to say that, because when I think, I'm like, I have a lot of pastime moments that don't feel like it was that long ago. I'll see like a post like 15 years ago.
Because they're classics.
Because they're classics, of course. They're big hits. And I'm like, what? 15 years ago, you know? But, you know, I've been doing this a very long time. And I'd like to say I started from the bottom, you know, meaning I started as a student in the game and an intern, and I didn't skip a step.
So let's talk about starting from the bottom a little bit. Everybody says starting from the bottom is their career start. Let's start from the very bottom. Parents, influences. Yeah. How did you get into this ear game?
So definitely I want to credit my dad. He was just one of the parents, well, really both of them, but I'll say my father, because my father was, I'll say my parents they come from Nicaragua and Colombia. Okay. And so they came to the United States really to birth me.
Before you go, she sounded like the Griselda when she said that, Nicaragua.
In Colombia.
In Colombia.
Right.
You seen the show?
Yeah, of course.
Sounded just like her.
Yeah.
Go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, they came to the States to birth me, right? Like I am their anchor, right? Like I was the one back in those days, you birthed a child on US soil, you could become a citizen as time went on, right? So growing up, my dad just was so into the American music. And when I say that, that was anything from the Beach Boys to the Beatles to Stevie Wonder. And so for me, like I was listening to this in the background, just him just playing records. And I gravitated instantly as a child. And more for what it was and the melodies of it all. But I always remember that I was listening to him in like a different way. Like I was really owning in on the sounds, like what's going on here? Like the percussion here, the drums and the melodies and the backgrounds, the harmonies, how all of it was like just cohesively coming together. And I remember my father having this stereo system that had this like graphic EQ on the front. And I was like little, and he would always tell me, don't touch my stereo, because he'd have everything like perfectly set. And I was the one that was like, when he wasn't home or he wasn't looking, I would play a record and just start boosting like 60 hertz just because I wanted to hear, like, what does that do? And I'd hear this rumble. I'm like,
Wow, that's dope.
oh, that's interesting, you know? Or I would take it away and it would just sound so like, you know, like all the bottom was gone. So I was really kind of messing around. I did not know that that meant anything though. Like, it's not like I grew up like, oh, I want to be an engineer, because that's not what it was.
Right.
I hadn't even understood that that was really even a job until way later in life. I just knew that I loved music. I knew that I wanted to go down a path of music. And that's sort of where I just, in school, like, you know, I tried the theater thing. I tried to think I was going to be like, maybe I want to perform. That didn't work out.
I was just about to ask that. Most people that come on,
Yeah.
they start out want to be a rapper, they turn into a producer. They start
Yeah.
singing and turn into.
Yeah, well, I thought I wanted to sing. What killed me in that world was the stage. I never, you know, you hear a lot of artists that say like they get the nerves, but the minute they hit the stage, it's like they just
Like
come
nuts.
alive, right? Yeah. No, I like died. Like I was just like stuck. Like the voice didn't want to work. Like it just, I was like, okay, this isn't for me. I knew that early. But like into high school, I started hanging out with a lot of different groups of people that just were producing, rapping, singing. And that was just a crowd that I kind of was hanging around. And I really just wanted to figure out what that path would lead me to. So really didn't get me anywhere. It's like trouble, right? It really didn't get me anywhere. But what it did do was really ignite the passion more, that I know I want to do music. I know I want to do music, but I wasn't able to identify exactly what. I was leaning more in like, oh, I think I want to be a producer. I want to do that. But as you know, back in high school in those days, when you would meet with your guidance counselor and they would say, okay, like, what is your path? What do you want to do?
Yep.
And I'd say, man, I want to be in music. Well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I want to make music. Like, you know, but they're like, okay, so what instrument do you play? And I'm like, but I don't.
First thing they ask,
I
what
don't-
instrument you play?
But do you like what about? And I was like, I don't do any of those things. I just want to make music. And they're like, yeah, we don't have there's no school that can really offer you anything for you to, you know, take a degree program in that way. So it was shut door, shut door, shut door, one after the other. And I felt defeated, right? And so I didn't really understand where I was going to go. I went to traditional college for criminal justice. I went into business administration. Like I was kind of switching things up quite a bit. Psychology was the last switch up before I found Full Sail.
What school is this, by the way?
I was at a community college here in Broward, Broward County.
Gotcha.
And so my brother was going to a university out in Orlando called UCF, University of Central Florida.
Yep.
And so he called me one day and was like, yo, sis, like, I know you've been wanting to do this music thing, but there's a school out here. I don't really know what they do, but if they do music, you should come check it out. That's all he said. And I was like, all right. So I made the drive up and it was Full Sail. And I went to one of their behind the scene things and I just toured the school, and it was just a moment of like connection. I walked into a studio and saw this, and it was like I was locked and loaded. I'm like, oh, I'm dropping out. I'm saving money, and I gotta get to this school. And I did just that. I got back home 6 months later. I was in Orlando starting the program.
Wow. Yeah. And when you went to Full Sail, when you first got there and saw that and fell in love, what was the ratio of computers versus hardware in there at the time?
Oh, at the time, it was majority hardware. We were on tape machines. I learned on tape machine. Pro Tools was just sneaking in. Like we were still on tape machine and DATs, right? And ADATs and all that. Yep. And Pro Tools was like just barely scratching the surface. So we were basically learning everything on tape, digital tape, and console and outboard gear. Yep. Like I didn't know anything about a plugin. Like we weren't even getting taught. Like the curriculum hadn't even gone there yet. You know, like it was very, very like scratching the surface. Yeah. Back then.
So you learned on tape. I learned on tape.
Yeah.
So cutting tape, editing. Right. Some of the people don't know how frustrating that was, bro.
That's rough. And I will say, as much as I love tape and as much as I love analog, that is one world that I'm glad that we were able to kind of get away from.
Right. Talk about the first year. So the first year you were at Full Sail, what did you expect to learn? What was your expectation? Was you like, yo, this ain't the graphic EQ. What am I doing?
I was expecting to learn everything, and because remember, I went in as a student, like a ground zero student. I didn't even know what MIDI was.
Wow.
Like I didn't know. I was like, they were throwing so many things at me. I'm like, what? Like, I was like, what is going on, right? First 3 months of the program, you kind of learn all these different things, like before you get into specifics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you get into a month of MIDI, a month of recording engineering, a month of show pro.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the first 3 months, it's like general education of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, wow. And I'm going to school with basically musicians and kind of, I guess, other engineers or people that have kind of already been in that world quite a bit. So they were pretty quick to understand, and I'm like lost. Like I was the student that had to come early, leave late,
Yep.
like ask the extra questions, you know, like that kind of thing. But I was good with it. I was so intrigued by it. Like it was fun to me. It was just like mind blowing. So for me, it was like, oh, this is dope, you know.
At that time, it was early. How many women were there?
Ooh, there was only 4 to 5 of us, and so our lecture classes was like about 100 and over 150.
Yep.
And there was only like 4 or 5 women in there.
150.
Yeah, our lectures. So then we would break off into our labs, which is only 6 students in each. You know, yeah.
And what was the time period again?
So I went there from between 2001, February of 01 to February of 02.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then you came out and you did an internship, but I want to talk about some things. I'm going to say a couple of things, and I want you to tell me what they mean to you. Jimmy Douglas.
Oh my gosh, he's my mentor. He's my friend. He's my family.
SSL 9000.
Oh, and the SSL 9000 is it's a core of my all the records I've ever worked on has been on an SSL.
Standalone gear. I know one of my favorites, I don't know why, has always been the Avalon 737. A lot of people like the CL1. A lot of people like the Neve. A lot of people like Fairchild, Pultec.
Yep.
There's one that came to mind I just learned about. I wanted to know if you knew about it. It's called a Lavery.
Lavery?
Yeah. It's something that Jason Joshua put us on to. What was his secret sound before he got into the box. And a lot of engineers are like, yo.
It's a compressor?
Yeah, and it's gold.
Okay. No.
Yeah, it's a vintage joint.
Okay.
I just wanted to see if you knew, because you look like you knew about it.
No, I don't.
But what is your favorite go-tos?
My
vocal chain and music chain.
So my vocal chain has pretty much been quite the same throughout the years. Early on, it was a Martech MSS10. Okay. It was like a little lunchbox, clean sounding mic pre. That went to a CL1B. Okay. Over time, that ended up changing to, I love the 737, but I really only use that on certain vocals that I know need to cut through a bit more. Like, I would probably cut you on a 737 just because of the tonality of your voice. Yeah. So that deepness, you know, of certain voices that I feel like can get caught up in certain, you know, and obviously the mic choice is a big part of it too, but a preamp is really big on really creating that first step in the sound, the color of the sound. I've never changed the compressor. It's always been the Tube-Tech CL1B. And of course the Neve, the Neve 1081.
Everybody's loving those now. Everybody's got the setup with the CL1 and the Neve. Yeah. What about mics? What's your favorite mic?
My favorite mic is, there's 3. I mean, the U87, very versatile, the C800, and I love the Elam 251.
I always like the TM from Norman.
The one, is it?
Yeah, it's 103.
103, yeah.
But I feel like for rap,
yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah.
I always felt like the 87, I always thought about like Mariah Carey and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So I was real surprised that Lil Wayne used a C800. Right. So I'm like, that's a bright mic. Like, why would they use that in a contrast? But maybe somebody put it on to them. It's like, hey, yo, here's the thing about that C800 is a lot of artists, when they first hear themselves on it, it's like it opens a world for them and they don't want to go back. That's what it is. It's like they love that microphone. Like, it's the #1 requested mic that I have. It is. When people come through it, you got a C800? You know, it's like, and now we have 2, but before we had one that it was hard to shuffle around. We had 2 artists in here that wanted the same mic. Right. So the other side, I'd be like, well, I got the 251, which is another beautiful mic. Crazy. Yeah, it's an incredible mic. Yeah. And once I put them on that, they're like, oh my, but the problem is those mics are not, you can't find them everywhere, right? They're very expensive microphones. So
if they want to cut on that mic again and they're now in a different studio, another state,
Yeah.
it's like they don't have it.
How important is that? So I know that some of the artists we work with, they'll cut one verse on a 251 and then the second verse, they might go into Texas and use a 87.
Yeah.
How do you get the contrast to get to that space where it's sounding almost the same, but you got two different mics?
Yeah, I mean, it's you got to dial in on what's going on frequency wise and just tonality. I'm not the biggest fan of people doing that, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, especially with outboard gear. That's what I'm asking you. Like,
yeah, no, because it really changes it. So it really, as an engineer, you really have to like deep dive and make sure that you kind of figure out how to match them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always going to come down to really EQing it in a certain way. I'm not a big fan of using the same mic for the entire song. I love using like one mic on the lead and then a different mic on backgrounds.
Why is that?
Because it just creates a whole like different sound of color that you're just like, wow, that's dope.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But using it, two mics on two different leads, the first and the second verse, that gets challenging. You know, especially when you want the record to sound seamless. You know, but you know, it happens. We work in a very wild west type of production world. You know what I mean?
That's why I consider somebody like you a producer, because to have that certain mind frame to actually figure that out. Like, okay, we got Nelly and we got Tim in the room.
Yeah.
We're gonna put Nelly Furtado on this mic.
This mic, yeah.
And then the backgrounds in the beatboxing will be on another mic.
Yep.
That's our art.
Yeah. And we've had to do that.
Yeah.
Like we've had to do. Oh, absolutely.
I'm thinking about it. I'm running through my brain as you're talking about it.
We did the Nelly Furtado Loose album.
The diamond record hanging over our head, right?
We literally had like 4 different mics up.
Wow.
Yeah, like because we had the like a Nelly mic, a Timbaland mic, and we also, you know, that record was done with Timbaland being in the Junkyard so much. So the Junkyard was anything and everything in the live room or in the actual control room or wherever.
Whoa. It just hit me in the head. The Junkyard?
Yeah, that's what we called it.
Okay, so what is this?
The Junkyard was just grabbing anything like
trash cans,
rakes, the fire extinguisher, pencils, and anything that Tim can just start making beats on.
You had to mic up everything.
And we had we would have like a room mic, and then depending on where he was at in the room, then I would come in there and adjust the microphone to where he's at so that I can get a closer sound.
Wow.
Unless I just wanted just a room mic in there, you know, so.
Wow,
yeah.
The Junkyard.
The Junkyard.
We gotta elaborate on that. Well, how many albums was this Junkyard made?
Oh, so I mean, we did Shock Value, Loose. I mean, I didn't work on Future Sex Love Sound. You can ask Danger about that or Tim, but I'm pretty sure because that was that era where Tim was just like, I'm just gonna find, you know, and make like beats like that, and then build the song around this beat.
Before you got into the mixing part of it, you were recording?
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff?
Yeah.
What do you like more, mixing or recording?
I love
different steps.
Yeah.
Different steps.
You know, here's the thing. I love to record. There's nothing, I really love the sound, the art of capturing the sound and being the first one to do it. I did it for years and years and years. Whether it was instruments, vocals, virtual, it didn't matter, right? I love being in the room during the creative process. Where I lost the love for it was being at the mercy of an artist.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And so when I became a mom, that was a harder thing for me to do.
Okay.
I can't sit around a studio and you tell me you're going to show up at 4 and you don't show up till 10 p.m.
Right.
And now we're working till 4 a.m. and I got to be home. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. I couldn't be at the mercy of an artist anymore. And so it was a pretty easy transition for me because I was already recording and mixing at the same time.
Gotcha.
So when I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna the recording, I'm gonna give it to the next generation because there's a whole world out there that want a part of this, you know, wanting to be a part of, you know, making records. So it's like, you know what, I got a job for you. If you're good at what you do, it's for you, you know.
Yeah.
But I love it. I
hear so many people talk in the mixing world talk about the recording space was the toughest time of their life.
It was.
Toughest time just recording and just the hours put in, some people say the malnutrition, not eating right.
Listen, it's the amount of hours, the malnutrition,
attitudes.
The lack of sleep. Yeah, you're dealing, it's more of a psychological job because you're dealing with so many personalities in the room beyond the artist, sometimes you have the managers, the A&Rs, the producers, you know what I mean? Like
That era.
and now you have, and then you're there and everybody's, kind of direct you to do something, and the artist may not want something and the producer's like, yeah, do it. And then you got to try to find that middle ground so you're not breaking the synergy.
Yeah.
You're always kind of like the referee. It was a lot. It was a lot. I did my bid.
I heard the horror stories.
Yes, I did my bid. So
We'll jump back when I skipped over the internship for a reason. So I want to go back. When you came out of Full Sail, what was your first internship?
my first and only internship I ever did was at the Hit Factory here in Miami.
Okay.
Hit Factory Criteria. Yeah. It was a job that I sought after when I was in school. It was the only really job I wanted. Not to say that I didn't try to go somewhere else just to not put all eggs in one basket, but that was my target.
Okay.
And
Why was it a target? Because of the clientele?
the clientele, the
was it home?
history, all the above.
Because most people
All the
will
above.
go back and say, I'm gonna go to LA
Yeah.
and go be
And that was on the table, like going to New York. It wasn't really LA at the time. It was should I go to New York? Because at the time New York was big, was popping.
Yeah.
But what really came down to it was I was broke, right? And I was like, I'm just gonna go back home.
Stay home.
Yeah, I'd rather be home. And there's a studio here in my own backyard that is just as big, right? That has history beyond the years. Criteria has been around since the 50s, right? And present day, it had been housing the likes of Michael Jackson, Rodney Jerkins, like, like it had the greats in there. So I'm like, I need to go behind those gates.
Right.
So I really wanted to work there. So I started to do the reach out process my third month into the program at Full Sail, just to kind of introduce myself, just to be like, hey, I'm like a student that would love to work there in like 9 months. And so I kind of continued that communication with the studio manager and the assistant studio manager to when, right before I graduated, I was like, do y'all have I'm graduating, would love to see if you have a position open. At that time, at that very moment, he said he didn't. But maybe a couple weeks after my graduation, like 3 weeks after I graduated, he called me and said if I could come in for the interview. And I drove down because I was still living up in Orlando, did the interview, thought I failed it.
You killed it.
No, I didn't. I don't know. I didn't think I killed it. I was nervous. I was so nervous. The studio manager, he's very stoic. He didn't really have an emotion.
Yeah.
So I was like, I thought I was trying to, I thought I was being bubbly, or not bubbly, but just saying the right things. But then I was like, but he's not really, he has no emotion to this. Like
Getting the job.
So even the way he ended it, it felt real short, So when I walked away and drove home, I was down, like, wow, I blew the one job that I wanted, right? Like I really wanted this job. But I think he was just playing with me. Like I think he was playing mind games.
Ready.
Yeah. And so he called me like the next day and was like, when can you start? And I was like, tomorrow.
So that job was assistant engineer, full engineer?
It was a general assisting position. So basically internship.
Okay.
It was a paid position. Fancy way to say intern. It was general assisting.
Right.
So anything from running food, basic helping set up sessions in the studio, making coffee, making beautiful fruit baskets and flower arrangements, right? Whatever assisting needed in the studio, cleaning, setting up, whatever it took,
Right.
And so, yeah, that's the job that I got.
First full break.
So the first person that I ended up recording, so a lot of people think it was Missy, but I didn't record her first. It was Tweet.
Wow.
Yeah, it was Tweet.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I remember I was in the studio with, there was another engineer. I wasn't the engineer. I was the assistant in the room at the time. And the engineer, Dylan, I don't even know what happened to him. I don't know what happened, but the Nissan Stewart, who was the producer, and Craig, they were like, yo, can you just record her? And so I was like, oh, okay. Like, I wasn't great, but like I got the job done enough to when the engineer was able to come back in and finish it off, you know?
You had it set right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I go back to the beginning when I'm saying that I met everybody. Around that time, here's a little trivia. I was DJing for some of Tim's artists.
Oh.
One happened to be Miss Jade.
Oh, yeah.
Same time as Tweet. She used to come to Hit Factory to record, and I was the DJ, and I would come down here. She would have shows in different places. I'm like, How the hell did I not run into you?
That's crazy because that entire I think it's Southern Hummingbird.
Yep.
That's the whole album. I did that whole. I was
That's so
assisting
crazy,
that
bro.
entire album.
Crazy.
And like we literally did that whole album upstairs at the Hit Factory in Studio B. Like, a lot of people don't even know
Right.
that studio exists because it's the only studio upstairs.
Right.
But I love that studio because it's just off in its own place. But yeah, I don't know how we completely just.
Shit. It happened there.
Yeah.
It happened there. We talk about artists. I'm gonna say a couple more names and you tell me what they mean to you. Madonna.
Man, that's a tough cookie right there. She was tough on me, but that's my girl. I mean, she's a legend. She's a professional. She blew my mind because I'll tell you, we were in London working with her on the Hard Candy album.
Okay.
And I was there with Timbaland, Danger, and Justin Timberlake, right? And we had this session set up. And they were like, she had an engineer, but Spike Stent. And so the studio was like, look, like, she had her like writer, exactly her equipment that she needed. No problem. As an engineer, this is one of the hardest type of sessions to do when you have to work with an artist and you're given the specific settings. This is the setting she wants. Don't touch it. I'm like, what? Like that's
outboard gear.
Outboard gear. Yeah. Like her vocal chain.
So the paper goes on top. Do not touch.
Do not touch. Right. Like everything's already set.
Gotcha.
But I'm like, but how's that possible? Because if she wants to do something loud or do something softer, like I'm gonna have to adjust it. But whatever. Spike Stent was her engineer, so he's the one that kind of sent the studio all the settings, and they set it up. They got everything right. So she comes in. She gets in the booth. She starts going like, this don't sound right. It don't sound right. And I'm like, what? So now I'm like, I don't know because this is exactly what, like, I didn't set it up. They set it up. And they told me not to touch it. It was, like that kind of thing. So I'm just like, all right, you know what? I just got to bust this thing open and just start moving things around. And she's getting mad. Like she's getting real mad. And I'm like, Jesus. What ended up happening was she requested a Sony headphone, and it was off by one number, like the model number. It was off. It was like
that was the difference.
That was the difference. They got the wrong one but the model number was off by one, and she felt it. She heard it. I don't know what it was.
That's crazy.
And so once they got the right headphones in there, she was a doll to work with. After that, it was a 5-day session. It was great. At the end, she gave me a hug and you're dope, that kind of thing. But man, I remember like. She crucified me. Like, man, like I was just like, oh,
damn.
To get yelled at by Madonna, like,
yeah.
And like I grew up on like buying her Like a Prayer, like like I was one of those like girls and
you had the bubble guts the whole time.
Oh my God,
I already know.
It's Madonna. It's like I don't want to disappoint her. Like,
I already know.
And I know what I'm doing at this point in my career, but like I said, as an engineer, when someone tells you like these are the settings, don't touch it. That makes me now a Pro Tools operator. I'm not an operator, I'm an engineer. So when something goes wrong, I want to like move things around because I need to be able to get in under the hood, right?
Right.
So that just threw me off. Like, so I just ended up saying, man, bump that. I'm just moving everything. Like I'm changing it, I'm figuring it out.
Right.
So yeah.
So going off of that, let's think about the correlation of production and engineering. How often do you get a session and you're like, I feel like this break should be in this record, or I feel like these vocals should be here or move around? Did you ever get into a space where you're doing these things and people are respecting it, or they're like, yo, leave my shit like I want it?
Both. I'll definitely move some stuff around. I'll definitely put a drop somewhere. Like,
okay.
I mean, I think that's part of it. I think a lot of what I always try to teach and explain is engineers, we have a technical job, but we're also our job is creative,
100%.
And I think, there's what people need to do is be very open-minded to that. Like we are respected as such in the room. If you keep yourself as someone that's just never going to like try anything, then you're not really bringing anything to the record. I want to say that I brought something to the record.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So if I feel like, you know what, I'm going to maybe mute some harmonies here and then bring them into the second chord because I feel like it's going to build it better, I'm going to do that.
Right.
You know what? It's digital.
Right.
It's easy. If you don't like it, I can change it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't think it's a big deal. I've had people be like, oh yeah, what you like? Why does it sound different? Like, what's going on? And I'd be like,
Why it
oh, be like,
sound
no, no,
different?
no, bring it back. I'm like, all right.
That's gotta be the worst.
what it
Why
is.
it sound different?
Yeah, I'm like, because they got demolitis. That's why it sounds
Facts.
different. They're not open to new changes, and I don't care. It's digital. Like
Sorry?
like I can switch it back. I have playlists. I can revert it to another session.
What, your first mix was digital in a box or was it on the board?
Oh, everything was on the board.
Okay, so
that was
would you
different.
make those changes on the board?
Yeah, those changes are it's well,
It's a headache.
yeah, it's a little harder because now I'm automating on the board. I'm doing certain mutes on the board.
Right.
So it gets a little bit more challenging, but nothing is forever. Let's just say that.
Facts.
It's not forever. So
Pet peeve when you're opening a session.
Seeing
And
everything
from anybody.
saying audio 2.01.
Why does
like,
nobody
why?
name their tracks?
Like name the tracks.
What does that do for you? It's like, what's the bass? So you got to wind up soloing?
Yeah, well,
using-
I'm the I have a bit of OCD, so I'll take the time to just name it myself.
Okay.
And I don't even name it at the track. I like naming in the comments.
Okay.
Like because when you shrink the track,
Yep.
you can't really read the name when it's in the track name, but when it's in the comments, you can see it no matter what size it's in.
Yeah.
So I when I set up sessions, I can't work unless it's set up correct, like organized. It has to be organized. Organized by name, organized by color, by song structure. I have a way that I want my instruments to be based, and my drums, then my keys, and then any like transitional sounds like effects.
Yep.
Swells that can be at the bottom of the music bed of it all.
Yeah.
And then I even my vocals are done a certain way as well. It's always to like the way the song is going. So it's like first verse, pre-hook, now second verse.
Organized.
It's very organized. Like I have to look at it like a song. Like
Yep.
I don't want to look for things. I don't want to have to be scrolling up and down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Before I get into your top 5 mixing engineers of all time, Jason Joshua has this saying that I keep saying, and he said it to me before, is this fuck your rough mix. So he basically, from what I examine, is like he takes everything off and starts from scratch with his taste. There's 2 types of engineers that do that. Then you have Leslie Brathwaite, right? That may say, I'm leaving everything there. I'll just insert my track and do my balancing and things that I need to do. What's your best remedy for somebody that's like, okay, leave it the same, I got demolitis. Do you put your own track on there, or do you start from scratch with every mix? Do you subtract what was there and start over, or do you add something to what was already?
Yeah, so this is a great question, because what I will say is evolution of time has taken over. If you would have asked me this about 10 years ago, I would have told you I'd take everything off and start from scratch.
Okay.
That has gotten me in a lot of trouble, and it has lost me a lot of mixes. Right, because then I do my own thing, and people have this demolitis, and they're like, "Oh my, this is way too different," right? And they're just like they freak out. They're like, So it's like, okay. Then I did a little bit of half and half. Like I'm like, you know what? And I still do this too from time to time. Like I get a lot of sessions that are just way overly processed with like stuff, like just way too much stuff. So I just start pulling back, like, okay, we don't need 3 compressors, calm down, you know what I mean? I start taking, like, things that aren't really they're not gonna notice. The things that I don't take away, unless I truly hate it, are like the creative choices, like delays and certain, reverb choices or verb throws. Like I don't take those away, because that to me is almost a part of the production, like almost like a producer played that, right? But
would you change them though? Would you say, okay, I got our verb on there, I'm gonna use
100%. I always do.
Okay.
I always do, because I get a lot of sessions that people put like D-verb. I'm like, that's the best you could do? Like we got so many.
So you go UAD, right?
UAD or Valhalla. I just try to give it something more. Like if they're using a plate on D-verb, I'll just use, but like I tweak it out more.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. But now it's like everybody, like all people want is the record. Like I literally get all these mixes now. People, can you mix this record? But I love the way it is. I think it's just a couple level changes. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna work way smarter and not harder. And okay, I got you. And I just take away what I think is overly done, and a lot of it is just like, I put my little taste on it, but you love it, great. And it's just, that's where we are today. I try to like, a client doesn't say anything, I'm going all in. Because that's the fun in it for me.
Right, they're coming to you for your taste.
Of course.
At that point.
Of course, but I'm telling you, I get these clients that don't want much done. It just be like, I just want it to hit. That's all they tell me. I just want it to hit. So if that's the case, then all I do is really treat the drums. And then like, I might just, when they tell me that, what I'm hearing is, like, I love me. Like, they love what's going on as the artist, as they're performing.
First,
They're just like, fix the music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what, and I love mixing music. I love mixing drums. I love all that stuff. Yeah.
I can tell you like the instruments.
Yeah. So.
In the world of the vocals being too loud now, so I'm hearing like a lot of these recordings, even after mix and master, every artist wants their vocal loud. Very loud, yeah. How do you get to a balanced space with yourself? It's like, bro, this just the new age, but I know the balance is wrong. Yeah. Back then we used to go to mixes like, I need this balance for radio. I need this balance for this. This needs to come off CD sounding a certain way. Right. Now it's like, I'm on my vocal super high, music super low. Yeah. What do you do with that? I can't turn in a mix when the vocal's just sitting way on top. Yeah. Like, I believe that there has to be a marriage between both, and I also believe that a producer needs to be showcased just as much as an artist. 1000%. So you have to find that beautiful marriage between the both. The artist is always going to be the in the spotlight, but to be so on top, I think there's a way to do it where it's like it's still sitting in the track and everything can live in harmony together. But I personally cannot, like, it's very hard for me to turn in a mix and they're like, oh, can you turn this up more? Can you turn this up more? I'm like literally turning it up like 0.3. Like, I'm barely playing. I'm like, yeah, it's going up. But it's like, come on, like, I come from a time in music where everything was just sitting so perfect in the music bed. So it's like, that's what I go off of. Like, that's where my brain goes to. But then I also have to go into modern music today. Like, all right, where's modern music today? What I'm asking. Modern music. That's what I'm saying. I try to find the beautiful marriage. Like, how do I get it done to where like how it should be, what I believe, but how they want it. And I just try to find that beautiful blend and see if it passes, right? Because sometimes it gets green lit. Like, oh, I love it. Like, oh, great, I got it, And sometimes like, can you do a vocal up version? Yeah, no problem, I got you. Yeah. So. This is a question that everybody wants to know about because I get this asked a lot. Yeah. How many mix changes have you made? I've seen version 27. What's the most you've been to? So I remember I think it was like 21 or 22. I was working with Puff. Working on this Biggie duet record featuring Jay-Z. And we were working in New York, and it was a 9-day mix. Is it because some of the music changes, or was it that... It was Jay and Puff going back and forth about certain things. Got you. And then it was the music. Like, it was always something different. Yeah. Like, it was like weird. It was like we would make a change on the music, then 3 days then it'd be fine. Then 3 days later we would go revert it back to what it was 3 days before. You know what I mean? It was like they couldn't make a decision. Yeah. So he was living with all these different versions. Yeah. And trying to figure out, okay, but I like what they did on this version, but on this one, and then how do you piece all that together? Yeah. By the time you're done, you're like on version 21. Like, yeah, they always ask that. And I'm like, man, I just saw this story, like Michael Jackson Thriller was on 27th mix. And then Quincy Jones walked in the room. They said Quincy walked in the room and he was like, what are y'all doing? Yeah. And Mike was like, we're mixing the record. You know what I'm saying? He was like, let's listen to mix 2. They went back to mix 2. That was it. Yeah. And it was like, y'all got to 27 and went back to 2? Man, it's wild. I will say, even talking about that, like, what really got me from being totally on the console to finally giving up, because I remember Leslie Brathwaite was telling me, like, you still mixing on the board? Like, get in the box. And I was like, nah, like, I like it. Like, and he's just like, man, like, it's so much easier, like, the clients. Yep. And I remember him always telling me that. I'd be like, it's all good. I don't mind. I have to recall it. And I love BJ, the Chicago kid, but my goodness, he put me through some stuff, right? Like,
I was working on a record for him, and we did a few recalls. And I at the time I had like 2 songs up on this board. His was like on this side. I had another like going on this side. So I was like, all right. And he just kept sending me mix notes. Then he would approve it, and then something would tell me like, all right, he approved it. I'm gonna print, but I'm gonna leave the mix up. I'm just gonna work on this side of the board. And then of course he would like 3 weeks later or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, you're killing me. I put the mix down. So anyway, I had the stems or whatever, and then he didn't put the record out. And then like 2 years later, he comes back and asks for like another recall because he wanted to add some more like whatever production. And I was like, yo, for this recall to happen, that means I got to put it up on the board. And I don't know. I don't think I can do it. Like, it's not going to come back. So I had to kind of mix it again.
Yeah.
As best as I could, like A being the mix. And I was like, yo.
So when do you get in this point? It was like, okay, I got this price set. Does it change per recall?
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
The recalls, yeah, you get charged.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, you not gonna remix this and not get no recall money.
Recalls, and what I call recalls, it's different. Recall is you approve the mix.
Yep.
We signed off, and now you're coming back to me, and now I have to recall it.
Yeah.
A recall is not like, hey, I did the mix, I'm sending it to you to listen to. You have mix notes. That's not a recall.
Yeah, that's just
process, you know.
Yep.
But if a recall, every recall you get a charge.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's time.
Yeah, that's a lot of
time. That's
time,
you know. But that I remember just saying to like, I think Leslie's voice at that moment finally like, it was like, oh, I'm done. I'm going in the box. Like I can't do this anymore. Like this is because and you know what? Shortly after that, it just got so crazy. Like these artists, like they want changes months later on something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the record doesn't come out when they think it's gonna come out. So now they have creatively thought of something else or added something else or sent new ad libs. So it's like working in the box is the best and efficient way to do it.
Yeah, he was the first person that I saw Patchwork go in the box. I remember going to the big room when I was starting out early with Jeezy, and he had these big piece of paper. Do not touch the board. Do leave it set. Everything was set, right?
Those days was
But
crazy.
then when he got in the box, it was like he was more efficient, and it served me because I had an ASR. The MIDI time clock wouldn't lock up to the board. It was so much bullshit going on. So when he got in the box, I was like, oh, I could just do stems. I'm like, oh shit, well I already got the CD-ROM, and I'm gonna give you the CD-ROM. You can just pull up the stem. I'm just talking old shit right now.
Right.
But yeah, he was one of the first people who was like, man, I'm in the box, and then Phil Tan and then. I saw the trend of everybody saying, I'm in the box. I only know a couple people that stayed on the board, but that's because they wanted a certain sound.
Yeah.
You know, but they were also doing their own project. They didn't have clients lined up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Top 5, I know who I have. Top 5 mixing engineers.
Oh man, that's big. So I would probably, let me think.
No order.
No order, yeah, okay.
Order.
Neil Pogue.
Nice.
Manny Marroquin. Jimmy Douglas.
Go to.
Yeah, I remember looking at Manny's name in credits before I even got in the business, before I even went to Full Sail, you know, reading CD inserts, Alicia Keys stuff. I'm like, who's this? Like, you know, so, and I even did it when I was in high school, reading Jimmy's name on all the Missy, Genuine, like, you know, like seeing these names. So to actually meet a lot of these people in person, I was like, oh, Leslie, of course. I love Leslie. He's clean. He mixes
super clean.
Super clean. Like, I love it. Duro. I'm like, who is?
Wow.
I love Duro. Yeah, Duro's like old school.
I argue with people all the time in these comments, and I'll be like, yo, I think that Duro did the best Jay-Z mixes, in my opinion.
Oh man, and then there's
Of course.
Guru.
That's
Guru. Don't kill me, Guru. Don't kill me.
No, Guru.
You know I love you.
Guru musically.
Yes. Yeah, that's
I don't even consider him a mixing engineer.
No, he's a whole other.
Exactly.
He's a whole nother.
That's why I never even
bring.
I put him in the production space, bro.
Yeah.
The stuff he's told me what to do and how to do. Yeah. It's like, bro, you a co-producer.
Yeah, no, he's 1,000%
you know
a co-producer.
Yo, you're a co-producer, bro.
Yeah, he's an A&R, co-producer, engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, he's everything.
But I love what Duro used to do with Jay's vocals and even Fab, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, and some of the records he mixed, and I feel like he doesn't get mentioned, so I'm glad you mentioned him.
Yeah, no, Duro, I remember him always working at the Hit Factory when I was an assistant or an intern, and just kind of peek. Like I assisted him one time. I forgot on what record we worked on, and years later, like we ran into each other, and he was like, "Oh my God, I remember you assisted me. You were dope."
That's fire.
Yeah.
That's fire. All right, let me get you in some trouble.
Yeah.
Top 5 musical people. They could be producers, artists, engineers that you worked with.
Ah.
I'm gonna get you in
Top
trouble.
five?
This is gonna put you in trouble.
Sheesh.
I always cap it out this because it really shows, like, you know, who draws the inspiration the most when you're working, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to where it all started, because when I was in high school and I wanted to be in the music business, I said to myself, I wanted to work with these two people. So out the gate, I'm gonna say Missy and Tim.
Boom.
Because, and what was so wild about that was the first person I worked with as an assistant engineer was Missy.
Wow.
Like 2 months into my internship, I got the opportunity to work with
manifested
Missy. Yeah.
You manifested it.
And then, of course, working with Missy, you
Led to
meet
Tim.
Tim. Yeah. So that, and then that met, and then into Jimmy. So it was like, it was crazy. Like I knocked them all out like in one. So Missy and Tim, artists, producers, Quincy. I love Quincy. I mean, he's just
Incredible.
incredible producer, writer, everything. And I had the pleasure of meeting him a few times.
Yeah.
And talking to him, and him just giving me advice.
Yeah,
you know?
most people forget that he's a strategist too. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like he'll give you
Oh,
you
yeah.
can live for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no.
It might be not
and I had a
musical.
few moments. Like it was like a different events that I would run into him. So it was always like, okay, you know, that was dope. You know, I'm a big, I love jazz music. I love jazz music.
Yep.
So I'm going to say Miles Davis, because I do love just putting on a record, an album of his, and just kicking back. That's for me the getaway, right? Like when I want to just turn it all off, I just listen. I listen to jazz, and I love listening to him. Musicianship was just incredible.
Yep.
Incredible. Great ear. And I know a lot of people won't even mention that, but I'm just going to mention it because I love jazz, and it's just such an important music to genres in general. And then I want to give something to R&B, because I love R&B music so much. So I'm going to give one to Joe, because he's like my favorite.
Wow. Okay.
He's my
Have you ever
favorite.
worked with him?
I have not. I have met him once
Dope.
at a BMI show. It was very quick, but it was never like we never worked together. But I just feel like he is one of the most illest, coldest, that boy can sing. And
That's dope.
I love him. So
we're gonna get in the record. I'm gonna let you introduce it.
So this record came out about 15, I think it's going on 16 years.
We showing our age right now.
I know.
We're going.
But it's Keri Hilson, Knock You Down. Big record, #1 record. It's featuring Kanye and Ne-Yo. Actually a track that was passed up by many artists, many A&Rs, and it landed with Keri. I think actually Polo heard the track, right? And thought it was the most incredible thing. You know how Polo is the most incredible thing ever. So, so he was just like, she got to cut, we got it. So, writer by the name of Kevin Cossum co-wrote it with her.
I remember Kevin.
Yeah, KC. And they killed it. It's a record that I think goes down in history for just its simplicity, but it's, musical, great features. We finished the record. It was just Keri and Ne-Yo, and it was just a basic knock you down. It had bridge, a little vamp out, and then I remember I finished the mix, and we went. My team and we decided to go. I don't even know why we decided to do this. We decided to drive up to Mammoth Mountain in California to try to snowboard. Right, a bunch of us that don't know what we're doing. We're like, let's go do this. And like we're out in the middle of this snowstorm, like just trying to figure life out, because we just finished working on this great record that, Polo had been trying to figure out to get Kanye on it, but he wasn't able to do it. And then of course we go away, right? I go away, and he calls and he's like, I need you to come back. Like I got Kanye verse. And so whatever. The rest is history. The funny thing about this is the record that everybody knows today. When Kanye sent us his verse, so in the record you hear like the first like 4 bars.
Yep.
And then she comes in, Ne-Yo, and then he comes in later on, like I guess in the bridge. We had to make that edit because Kanye wanted his entire first verse, which was like 24 bars, to start the song. And it was like, but yo, like Keri won't even come in till like a minute in, and then the hook ain't gonna come in till
It's
like
my song now.
Yeah, no, it was
It's
like
my
a
song
whole thing.
now.
So, this was a little bit of a pull and a tug with him, to get it, because he was like, what, you cut my verse? Like, that kind of thing. It's history. It's in the history books now, and it became a #1 record. And it was a record that I actually mixed on the console, on an SSL. It was about 64 channels of music and vocals and et cetera, et cetera. So I did very little in the box.
Yep.
The majority of it was done EQing on the board, sending the sounds out to outboard gear that I had. I mixed it at several studios. At the time I was living in LA, so I was working a lot out of Chalice studios in Hollywood.
Chalice is hot.
Yeah, but I know I mixed it out of several studios. It wasn't just Chalice. So this is Knock You Down.
So let's get into it.
Yes. So Knock You Down, a record that was produced by Danger,
Yep.
Longtime partner, collaborator. I've been working with Danger for 21 years.
Wow. Danger Hands.
He was Danger Hands. And we took the hands off, and now he's just Danger. So, we met working with Timbaland, just 2 kids that were hungry in the game of this music industry madness. So we, working on Keri's album, we did a bunch of records for her. I want to say, I don't even know, we did pretty much majority of the album. And this one was a standout record. Originally had Ne-Yo on it, and eventually we got Kanye on it. So I can play it down for you youngsters that don't remember.
Why'd you start the session so far out? Is that something you do?
What you mean?
Just a gap of space in the beginning.
You mean this right here?
This space. You press play and it took like almost 5 seconds to come on.
You're right. No. You didn't hear it, but it's like a little intro part.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. It's just.
I know some people may start their session here in the middle.
Oh.
Just preference.
Yeah, it's neither here or there. I don't like it when it's like right at the. I like to give it a little space to like pre-roll, just
got you.
anything.
Got
Yeah. So yeah, getting into it. I mean, the approach on this record for me was, it's a melodic record. There's driving drums. A good, dope sounding bass line. So obviously, my approach on it was at the time is I did start with the vocals first on this record.
Okay.
So really just making sure, working on Keri, really getting that beautiful sound, making sure that she's just cutting through the record, but not taking out those beautiful mid-tones that she sings. I think it's very important that when you're cueing an artist that you're not taking out their sweet spots.
Right.
If anything, you should be adding to it.
Right.
So really getting, but at the same time, you have to understand that there's music that's going to embody this vocal.
Right.
So it has to be able to compete, not necessarily compete, but sit correctly in the track. So really making sure, and I recorded this record as well.
Okay.
So I was actually the recording and mixing engineer.
I was going to ask that, like, do you start with correction first, like vocals, or were you correcting?
No, I was, as a recording engineer, like, I was already, I'm not a fix it in the mix type of engineer. Like, I'm like, get it right. So that way, by the time it transferred into the mix, it wasn't a lot to do. But, when you're recording the record, Danger, what you see in this mix today with all these parts were not all there. Okay. There was some things that were done in post-productions that didn't live in the recording process. So now that's what I'm saying needs to like sit in the mix. So I would, I worked on Keri, I worked on Ne-Yo. I think the most difficult part for me, I would say difficult, challenging. I don't like difficult, but challenging. When you have 2 artists that are duetting on a record and they're there's going to be a moment where they're going to want to ad lib, right? Together.
Right.
And really making sure that it's not like a competition. It should be a harmony of these two vocals coming together. But you know, they were coming in they were coming in pretty you know, strong. And I believe it's in this section. Yeah. So you hear Neo's coming in, and she's coming in with ad-libs at the same exact time, and they're just kind of bouncing off each other. And you know, a lot of that is you know, you deal with that by treating the vocal not only by automation, which is what you see here in Ne-Yo, is you're seeing me kind of ducking him. With Keri, you know, she's it's her record, so I you know, I want her to stand on top, but it's Ne-Yo. They did it together. There's no reason for him not to have the same you know, stage presence as her. But it should still sound like it's not going to be a crash train about to happen. But it's, you know, it's a beautiful synergy that happens. So, you know, I'll just solo these parts. So, you know, just.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. And it should also sound like they kind of were in the room together.
Right.
You know what I mean? Very even. You know, like it should sound like they're kind of like how records were recorded in the 80s, where they were just in one room with sometimes one mic.
Yep.
You know, you see some of these records from back in the day, like you could see that they were two artists in a booth or in a room and with one mic in an Omni setting on the microphone, and it's just capturing the whole thing. So I think that's a very important thing. So at the time, I was very big on starting with vocals. I think that's evolved later as time, as a mixer. I think I was, I would do vocals or I would do drums. It just really didn't matter. It's really what mood I was in. But I definitely, with this record, I started with vocals. So going to the music, you know, Danger, he was, you know, he's big. You know, he's self-taught musician. You know, he played the drums growing up in the church. So he's very big on you know, picking the right sounding kicks and snares, and you know, everything that has to do with the drum sound. It's very important for him. So, you know, really making sure that I had, you know, he had one driving kick in the beginning, which was the one, the 4 to the floor kick. And then for the rest of the song in the verses, I had to blend these kicks together. So one of the kicks, it's a loop with the snare in it. So, you know, really finding that balance between blending drums is time. You wanna take your time with it, because you know, there's a purpose for each drum. Like just because a producer wants to come in with a stack of 3 drums or 5 drums, it's not for all of them to be in the same space. You know, and you have to really find that blend and you know, where they should be living with each other, because if not, it becomes like a mud fest. It's like a mud fest, you know, and you haven't even started working on the bass. So if you're not really blending this correctly, by the time you move on to the bass, you're gonna really find yourself in some difficult positions, right? So let's see, bring it on here to the bass. So it was more of a subtone bass that he chose on this one. But not to say that some of these drums weren't lying in those same frequencies. So a lot of times I get asked, like, well, how do you know, like, how do you, because I actually get this a lot, you know, I'm known for making the bass and the kicks and the drums sound like they're in their own space. Because a lot of up and coming engineers, that they have their biggest challenges between the kick and the bass. The relationship of the two.
A lot of them use parallel to try to make up for some of the stuff, you know?
Correct, or distortion. But, you know, and distortion actually helps. I use a lot of distortion on kicks. Because I love to bring out the harmonic frequencies. that are not necessarily heard but felt, and distortion allows me to do that.
Do you do that in the box with distortion, or you do use a saturator out the box to create that type of sound, or
Yeah.
how'd you get there? Because it was on the board at
This
first.
was on the board. So for this record, I did both.
Okay.
Like I did one of the kicks. I'm trying to remember the actual outboard gear, and then I did like another one in the box, like using like lo-fi.
Got you.
You know what I mean? So it's not always sending everything to one unit. It's like, all right, like I'm very big on saying colors, right? Like I love to say that. I repeatedly say that because that's how I hear it. I visualize it. I'm a visualizer. I visualize and then I hear. It's like a thing that talk to each other. To me, that really created the sound of the kick to cut through.
Yep.
Especially the lower sounding kick to that sub bass. So once I got that in a good position, I mean the hi-hats and everything, that's all the bounce.
Right.
I mean that's
facts.
to me that's
That's
kind
the
of
rhythm.
that's the rhythm. That's easy to me. Like I mean I just, you find a space for that. You don't want it to be in a space where it's like overpowering. It should just be there. You know it's there. You feel it. You hear it.
Right.
Right. But it's not like on the top of it. Like that's just moving the track. That's all it is. Right. And the same thing. The crashes and all that. That kind of create the transitions of it. So this next part. Where you're dealing with the melodic part of the record. It's actually a pretty simple musical, because there's only really 3 sounds that are really driving the record. It's the main synth and 2 horns. And the 2 horns are really just a low horn and a high horn. And obviously there's the low and the high, so that it's kind of covering the full spectrum of frequencies. And the synth is just also the bounce of the record. So once
So you had focus points when you're mixing. So focus points, okay.
Yeah. So when I mix, let's say like once I did the vocals, I'm one by one with kick.
Gotcha.
Kick, bring in the snares, or a clap or whatever's in a record, hi-hat. Like I go down the chain. Yep. I will say the bass is the last thing I do.
That is crazy.
I know.
Because in this record, the bass is what got me.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I heard the synth, but the bass line is so like eerie and kind of like.
You're right.
That's what I was looking for. So I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe they started somewhere different.
No. So for me, like I just think like and I know a lot of people will be like, what? That's crazy. Like for you to leave that to the end because. Right. You're basically mixing a hollow record. Right? It's like,
right.
But to me, it's that last bit of just that butter that you're putting on that's just gonna make it right, and just fill in what's missing, right? And then from there, I'm able to it all makes sense to me once the bass comes in at the end, though.
Gotcha.
At the end, right? I'm not gonna take the bass out. Right?
We talked about this earlier. Did you have any editing, like production, it's in the records, or it came exactly what it is? You recorded it, you did your ins and outs and all that already?
Yeah.
Or you left it playing?
No. All those mutes and moments were already like done in the recording.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. If what was done in like later on was when we started adding Kanye, because we had to like that didn't exist. Yeah. So it was like, all right, where do we drop? Like that. Those are the choices that were made, that I made in that process. But it's also like a collaborative effort with the producers, and like I said, with Danger and even Polo had a big part in he loved this record. Right. So
Did Kanye's vocals come in comped, or they were session?
No, it came as a comp.
Okay. So do you like comps, or you find that frustrating?
Like an already.
When people just send comps in, like, hey, don't touch my vocals. This is already mixed. A 2-track stem of the mix of the vocals. Like when I see something.
Well, it was a comp vocal, but it wasn't. It was still raw.
Oh, so they took everything.
They took everything off.
Okay,
yeah.
Right.
I thought you meant like they took the. I don't mind it if it's what I just said. Yeah. I don't like it when you're giving it to me with reverb on it.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Or it's already been processed, because I'm like,
the process.
I gotta do my part, and if it's already been processed, it's gonna sound
Yeah.
Like it's
So
not.
what do you do in that instance?
I
Leave
either
it?
I either ask if I can get the raw vocal of it, and if they say no, this is what they want you to have, then that's all I can do. I just have to keep it. It's like you do the best with what you have.
Right.
But I definitely try, because sometimes it's not even about them wanting it that way. They just didn't know no better.
Right.
So it's like, no, let me get the raw vocals so I'll make it sound like how you want it to sound, but let me just work on it without anything on it. So with this record, like I said, there's 3 sounds that are really driving the entire record the entire time. The synth is playing pretty much throughout. And then the low horn, that's just really a supplemental to the synth, right? And so like I said, that's the low horn, high horn. And the high horn is just in there just for you to hear it, right? Because you hear the low horn, but you also, once everything is in, vocals are playing, like you need that high horn in there to kind of cover that that spectrum, right?
Yep.
Of frequency that's you would hear that it's missing. A good producer would know, like, oh, wait, a really great producers. I've worked with producers that, they're a little young in the game, and it's like you have to kind of, explain to them like how to bring certain, doesn't necessarily have to be the same sound, but we need to figure out how we can cover that what's missing in the, as far as frequencies. It's gotta feel full.
Right.
It's gotta feel full. So, the rest of this was literally just jabs. It was finding little moments, right, for it to fit in the record, right? Still, the synth is playing. Now we have a bell kind of playing in there that's just twinkling on top. Like the synth is just as much as an artist as Keri and the other artists on there, right? Like when people remember "Knock You Down," it's this, you know what I mean? Like it's that, like it's so infectious. It's so repetitive that it's almost like a hook within the music.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and then he brings in another, and even with this, like, it's sitting a little higher than the main synth, because I think it's important that even though the synth is playing constantly, at this point in the song, we're probably in Ne-Yo, we're in Ne-Yo's verse. People are like, subconsciously, we already know that synth is there.
Right.
So to introduce another sound that's kind of doing the same thing, but in a different way and a different sound, it's just building the anticipation. It's building the record. It's building it, because now it's we're in the second verse, which is Ne-Yo, and we're going into this next chorus, which we have to build it, and just having it a little higher than the other sounds that are constantly playing, that we know as in our subconscious, it's already there.
Right.
So, we just...
I hear Dr. Dre say he monitors or listens in mono. That's how do you listen to mono?
I do sometimes, yeah. I do just switch it up to mono just to kind of hear it. If you can hear everything just so clear in mono, when you go in the stereo, it's gonna bounce. Yeah, absolutely.
When we got to this last sound, which was like the twinkle, I noticed you said it was a little higher, so I was wondering if you got to that space by mono, or you just heard it in stereo.
I just heard it and just felt like this is where
where it sits,
where it should sit. Yeah, because I wanted the record to grow.
Got you.
Like that's the other thing, is like, it's not just mixing sounds and everything needs to be balanced. Like you need to actually build a record. Yep. Like, and it's your job. Like the producers are going to do that in the way of the production, but in engineering, it needs to be that way in how it's being brought in balances and compression. Yep. It's just different tools that you can do to make sure that it's in that place.
Yeah.
And again, it's like it's the same thing with this string. It's, yep. It's another little pad in there. It's just kind of building the chorus. It makes the chorus thicker. And this is just the chorus. You know what I mean?
And you think, and all this, when you were recording, Was this all after the vocals? Because I know that you always want to keep some space for the vocal to be the lead. After the vocal was down, did he say, okay, I'm gonna add the strings to take up more of the space?
Yeah.
In the spectrum, okay.
Like all these parts, these little bass horn parts here.
Yeah, plucks.
All these little sections here, this is all post-production.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah, the track literally only consisted of these main sounds right here. Well, really just this synth. This was brought in later, but not like after, like maybe before the vocals. But I remember this record in its rawest form.
Gotcha.
And it was literally just bass, drums, and that synth.
Yeah.
That was it. And then he started building it. Once we had a song and he could hear it, now it's like, all right, let's kind of build around it. Yeah.
Fill up the space.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah. And then, of course, these transitions are extremely important because, the little, I call them like rockets, or whatever, that introduces the section that we're going into. This is, all right, we're now at the top of the verse.
Right.
And this next one, I love transitions to like stand out. Like I'm one of those that like, you give me that Jamaican air horn, like I'm gonna like blow it. I'm obnoxious with it. Like I love transitional sounds. Like I think it's what really just, alerts the listener to be like, oh, okay,
yeah,
next section, you know. I get a lot of times people are like, can you bring that down? So I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like it's like, like I just think it's an important part.
It's introducing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So right here, it's like the beat drops. It's like an important part. But everything is just figuring out where things fit. At the last chorus, where we had a guitar come in, and it really just came in on it's a right side only. Like we only,
I see it.
yeah.
Level, yeah.
Yeah, I only had it coming out one side on the track, just because there was so much going on by the end of the song.
Yeah.
That now you have to find space for it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So those are the kind of decisions that can be like, did you mean to do that? Like, absolutely. Like, I'm a very big, like now we live in the world of immersive audio, like Atmos, and I love mixing in that format. It's one of I have such a fun time. But prior to that technology, my mind was mixing as if I was already in immersive. Like I had to find spaces for it. Like this is my stems, but you can see like, if you look at this particular track right here, like it's a little heavier on the left.
I see.
And that's on purpose.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like everything should not just be sitting so perfectly left, right.
I got you.
You know what I mean? Like we have to find, just spacing is a big part of mixing, because otherwise it would just all sound flat and just like there's nothing happening.
So the guitar was recorded in there, or you printed it?
I printed it that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like
okay.
Yeah. I just printed it that way. I was like, you know what, this record, by the end of the song, there was so much going on. There's vocals, mind you. At the end of the song, there's all the ad-libs.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just the music that's going on. It's like the artists are going off. Like it's like no. Like let me make that decision to pan that hard right, and just keep it there. You know what I mean? And from there, it was just pretty simple. Because the chorus. I mean, these are my stems, but Keri she stacks a lot when she records. So this looks simple, but in the original session, it's like. There's so much dynamic happening in a human voice that you want to be able to control it depending on, if the artist isn't able to do it naturally in the microphone, then you help them do it. Okay. And so it's a big part. Like when you see me automating, it's like literally like I can go down the song, and just hold on to this mouse and just literally, by the time I automate, I know the song so well. I know exactly where the dips that I want to raise up. I know where I want to start bringing things down. It's just that finishing touch.
Yep.
I don't think automating too early is ideal, because there's going to be changes. There's going to be level things that you want to change. And if you're automating too early, automation to me is the last thing I do. It's like once I get the record sounding right where I want it, and it's like, all right, everything is sitting beautifully. Now let me just bring in this tool to just raise things or dip things where needed. Sometimes they're necessary choices, artistic choices, creative choices, whatever it is. But that's the very last thing that I do.
Overthinking. How many times have you overthought a mix?
Man, I think in the beginning, a lot. I think now, and for many years now, I don't overthink it, because here's the thing, I was overthinking it because I didn't want to disappoint, right?
Yep.
But I've always been, I've always said that I mix with my heart. I mix with feeling. I understand the technology. I understand how to get to a result, but my mixing is a feel. It's not, oh, I need to take 300 hertz and that's not how I work. That's not me. It's like, wait, that doesn't feel good. Why doesn't that feel good? All right, and I know where to make that correction, or that's just too, like, that's going too much in that one direction. Like, it's making me feel anxious. Why is it making me feel anxious? You know what I mean? A lot of times that's like a high end thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, where am I gonna calm that down? You know what I mean? So I
never knew that high end stuff is very anxious.
It's very anxious. Yeah, it's like if you hear records and you just start, like, my approach is very emotional when I mix, and then I just interpret that into the geeky stuff.
So the low end is what?
It's the warm.
Warm?
Yeah, you want it to hug you.
Gotcha.
you want to feel like, okay, that feels good. You know what I mean? When you're not getting enough of that, because it's missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love low end.
Outboard would take you how long for a normal mix?
A good 8 hours plus.
Okay, 8 hours plus.
Yeah, in the box, 3-4 hours.
How many ear breaks?
I mean, if I'm working 4 hours on a mix, I'm probably taking like maybe 2 to 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
So ear fatigue is important.
Well, no, but I don't listen loud. In my studio, I have these NS10s. I have Barefoots and I have Osbergers, custom Osbergers for my mains. I'm never on the Osbergers, ever. Like,
I believe that.
I mean, I would have to get such a low sounding sub so I can understand what's going on, and then I would go up there just to kind of hear what that. But I'm never on that. I'm always on the NS10s, like 90% of the mix or more,
Okay.
and I don't listen loud. Once I feel like the mix is in a good place, I start listening externally on the Barefoots. The Barefoot comes with this,
Hi-Fi, yep.
Yeah, you can just control all the different settings on it.
Yep.
So I always go between flat and cube. Cube is like an Auratone.
Got you.
Monitor that. If I listen really low on the cube setting, if I can get something to sound incredible on that cube setting or like on an Auratone, I know I'm winning. In my early years of mixing, when I was in other studios, I used to always request that a Studer A820 was in the room because I used it for the speaker.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And if I could get a mix to bump on that little, mono little speaker, I knew that I was like killing it. I knew I was killing it. So I wasn't able to get one for this studio. So, you find other ways to get that translation in that way. Yeah.
I'm gonna get you in some more trouble. I swear by Focal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like that look. That was like,
Yeah.
We got in a big argument on C Notes episode about Barefoots versus Focal.
Okay.
He swear by Barefoots.
Good.
He cooked. He cooked.
Yeah.
He cooked.
Yeah.
Focal.
Right.
Cooked them.
So
there's 3, but this is crazy because I'm gonna say this. Most people that had an SSL board,
right.
This is what I saw. Either Auratone, NS10s, Genelecs.
Oh. Ugh.
I hate Genelecs.
I hate Genelecs.
Sorry, Genelecs. I hate
Oh, shoot.
Genelecs, right?
Yes.
That's why I said we're gonna get in some trouble.
They're not for
We're gonna
me.
get in some trouble. Later down the line, I saw Auratone NS10s trios, Focal trio. Now I'm starting to see legends like you get into barefoot, ATCs, PMCs.
Yeah.
Why not them and why barefoot?
Barefoot is a monitor I've been using forever.
Yep.
It's what I trust. It's what I know.
Okay.
Now, that's not to say that I didn't try the others. I have tried ATCs. I have tried.
What's the rating?
The rating, it's not low rating. It's a good sounding monitor. I would say like a 7.
Yeah, the 45 sound good.
Yeah, but they weren't the Barefoots. I tried the Focals because that's the monitor that Leslie uses.
Okay,
so
you rolled your eyes. So let's dig deep into this.
I ordered a pair. I put them up because Leslie was like, I swear by these. And I'm like, his mixes sound clean. I'm like, what am I missing? Like, or maybe I'm missing something here.
Yeah.
I returned them.
Wow. So you got trios?
Yeah, they weren't able to. They just didn't
translate.
They didn't translate the right way.
Got you.
And they weren't able to take the pounding.
Yeah. So you want the boom on the side, boxy boom.
Yeah. Listen,
yeah. But when you pair them with a KRK, and I'm not selling you on Focal, I don't got no.
They should
pay me.
We did that. We did that. We did the sub.
Okay.
It wasn't it.
Okay.
And listen, I'm not saying they're a bad monitor, but I've been with Barefoot. They should be sponsoring me. But that's a whole nother thing. I've been using Barefoots for over 10 years plus. I probably want to say even 15. Like when I was traveling, like I would have to rent them.
Okay.
Because these studios would like go crazy trying to find them. Because they weren't like the most rentable monitor. It's not like renting a KRK or a Genelec.
Facts. So
it was like, no, I need these. So when I remember building the studio and I had my equipment list and it's like barefoot, like my Atmos setup is all barefoot.
I seen that.
All barefoots.
That's crazy.
And would love a sponsor.
We're gonna get it. How about PMC?
I love PMCs. Okay. Now, when I was in, I love PMCs. I wanted an Atmos PMC, but it's just pricey.
Yeah, it is.
And when I built this studio, PMC was not like, it wasn't on the list. Like I hadn't worked with them. I hadn't worked with PMC monitors enough to like really know them to say, I'm going to make that investment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But when I was in Dubai recently, I went to a studio out there. And they're like
I think it's in all the studios out there. Because the studio I was telling you about, Marriott, is PMC.
Yeah.
Their mastering room is PMC.
Listen, I could not believe what was coming out of those monitors.
It sound crazy.
I was like, what? I think I had text Danger right away. I was like, yo, I'm in this. I took a picture. I'm like, yo, these PMCs sound incredible. Yeah. And he's like, oh, man. I was just like, but when I was doing Atmos, my Atmos setup, the PMCs was on my wish list, but they just wanted too much. Yeah, and I was like, yo, y'all tripping. Like, this too much, But I love the monitor.
We're going to get some more trouble, though.
Okay.
Atmos Spatial, here to stay or gone tomorrow?
I go back and forth. Like, sometimes I'm like, nah, it's here. But then I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's not catching like wildfire. Like, people, they want it to. But I remember when it first came out, and everybody was like, how are we going to hear it? And I remember saying, the only way this is really going to take off is if we can get it in the cars. Because that's where people are really going to appreciate it. Yep. I don't think they have it right in the headphones.
They don't.
They don't have it right.
Yeah.
So, you say you're listening to something in immersive in your headphones, you can listen to something in stereo, and if it's mixed beautifully, it's going to feel like immersive, right? You're not getting the full experience. So unless you're in a room or in a car. So when the car started getting them, I'm like, okay, now we're going somewhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? But so what I'm understanding is the newer cars like 2025 and moving up and beyond are now going to have these immersive systems.
Yeah, I heard one. I heard a couple records inside the Benz.
Oh yeah.
So they brought the Benz to us and we sat in there listening. Now that was
an experience.
Fire.
And that's what immersive is. It's an experience. So if you can't fully experience it the right way, then it's not going to work.
Here to stay, gone tomorrow.
I think it's going to be here to stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Jumping into the AI conversation real quick. Here to stay, gone tomorrow. Is this going to help you in your business or is this going to take away from you in your business?
I think it will hurt us. Absolutely. I don't think it's going to make us obsolete because I think there's going to be plenty of creatives and artists that are going to want the human element
Yep.
behind a mixing record. But, you know, you already have labels that don't really want to pay a price. And, you know, music is being spat out at such a high rate that unless they have their legacy artists who they don't mind spending and breaking the bank for, the ones that they're signing that they know they're probably going to shelve after a couple singles or whatever, you know what I mean? They're just going to put that in the generator. And hey, you know what? Make this sound like Manny Marroquin. Like, you know, make this sound like Marcella. And for $250.
Or less.
Or less.
We talked about AI. We got some business ventures. Number one, the water. Let's talk about it.
The water. So this water, which is No Days Off, NDO H2O.
Which is good, by the way.
Thank you. It's an amazing water that a friend of mine out here in Miami, Manning Sumner, he started a company and just had a vision for this water. I'm just a small investor. It's not my water. It's his baby, but I believe in it. It's just an incredible tasting water. You just got to experience it. And if you want to try it, reach out to me, DM me. I'll get you a case. Beyond that, me growing up, there was another passion of mine that was beyond music, and that was sports.
Because you said that. We were in there talking about NBA. It looked like you was about to get into a whole spill. I'm like, wait, you know about the NBA?
Yes, I know about the NBA, and I'm a big, big football fan.
Okay.
So growing up, I wanted to play sports. I came from a strict Latin family. It was like, girls don't play sports, you know?
Right.
But that didn't ever deter me from the love of it, the game, all of it. I found an opportunity in last year to start a flag football league,
That's dope.
a youth league. So it's the ages of 4 up to 14.
That's dope.
And so I started it out here in South Florida, and I have league games happening between Broward County, Palm Beach County, between 5 different regional parks out here. And so I'm in the middle of my midwinter season, which is a little under 1,600 kids. It's been a ride. It's been fun. So I partnered up with the Miami Dolphins. And so they are my partner in this. And so, of course, getting the resources and you know, all the different connections with the Dolphins have just allowed me to just really explode onto the scene.
I wonder if you had some intel on that. So I'm going to tell you something. My nephew's a big football player in Dallas. He just got a scholarship, but they offered him a scholarship in flag football too at the school.
Oh, okay.
And that's crazy. Did you have intel on this? Did you know this was coming?
Listen, flag football is big.
Okay.
It's blowing up. I've seen it just grow and grow over the years. I have a son, right, that loves the game.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to put pads on him. Right? I don't want
Put some pads on.
No, I did. I did once. He was 5 when I did it, though.
Don't put the big helmet on.
No, I didn't do that thing. But listen, I think you can I think it's a fun way for the community to get together, for a game to happen, and it's safe. You know what I mean? So I just really want to keep that going. So
Yeah, I'm old school, big iron.
no, I get it. Listen, the thing is, I love the game of football. It's not I love the game of flag. I love heads cramming. Like, that's it. Like,
I got you.
you know?
I
So,
got you.
yeah.
Let's close out. Tell them where to find you, especially for the water.
Oh, yes.
And
So
yes,
definitely. For the water, if you want any more of that, you can follow Drink No Days Off. And you can follow me at Incredible Lago. That's across the board, Instagram, or you can hit me up on my website, which is marcellaaraica.com.
And trust me, you want these hands on your mix.
My ears.
Right.